Our panel is Advancing Gender Equality, Economic Inclusion and Female Leadership in a Fractured World. Easy.
Yeah, easy
Cherie, do you think we can solve it in 20 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Of course, rebuilding trust is the theme here at Davos. What are you finding? What are you hearing in the discussions? And is anything making you optimistic in closing the gender gap?
We work with 250,000 women entrepreneurs across the world. And they tell me all the time that they are able, ready, and willing to participate in the global economy, to help with development, to advance their societies. They just need the support and the tools to be able to do that. And so what gives me confidence is that if we can only understand that by giving the women the opportunity to contribute, then actually so many things would become better. At the very least, we know that if women contributed equally to the world economy, McKinsey, the World Bank say at least $5 trillion will be added to global GDP. So what makes me confident that we can do this is the power of the women that we work with who have the ability to really participate. And all we need to do is to enable them to participate.
But Helle, there's a report from the World Economic Forum that's saying that it's going to take over 130 years to get gender parity.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. It's always great to be with you, and so nice to share this platform with you, Cherie. It's ridiculous that with all the evidence, and we just spoke about that backstage, with all the evidence that we have, that gender parity could make us so much wealthier, make us safer, that we don't take the last steps to make that happen. And every year we come to the World Economic Forum and debate these issues. So I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned that we're not moving faster. We see that everywhere, and to a certain extent, social media, which have so many positive sides to it, and also for women, is also having negative side, which is exacerbating these issues. And in terms of trust, I think it's important that we discuss trust very clearly and understand that most people, when they wake up in the morning, has a default sentiment of not trusting anything. They don't trust governments, they don't trust systems, they don't trust capitalism, they don't trust democracy, they don't trust the media, they don't hardly trust the NGOs anymore. People don't have any trust. And in that world, it is of course harder to fight the good cause for equity, for equal opportunities for men and women, for democracy, all these things. So we have a severe challenge ahead of us.
But you were in government, Helle,
Yes.
weren't you, of course, and you were the first woman to ever become Prime Minister of Denmark. How have leaders lost the trust?
I don't think leaders have, I think leaders are still trying to do the best they can, but the world has become so complex, and so many issues are actually beyond any leader in any country's control. I come from a very small country. If I want to fight terrorism, cyber attacks, attacks on our sovereignty, attacks on our borders, child pornography, anything, any problem, climate change, of course, any problem you could throw at us, my country would be too small to do that on our own. So leaders have to join forces with, in European context, the European Union, in a global context, all kinds of organizations, including the United Nations. We have to join forces to solve these issues, and it's hard to solve global issues. So that's why sometimes leaders look a little bit like they don't have the capacity to solve these big issues, and people are looking at leaders saying, when will you solve issues for me? The other thing I want to say is that there's no doubt, and in terms of trust, there is a mass class divide, and that means that people who don't have access to resources, to education, to health, as you just spoke about here, of course they will have much less trust in society and government leaders than people who do have access to all those things.
Well, Cherie, that is the work of your foundation, to get access to the women and girls that wouldn't they can't have that. So tell us, what are you hearing on the ground with your foundation?
Well, let me first of all say, I think, to Helle's point, that there's been this polarization, and the most important thing, the message surely here from Davos, is that we can work together. Governments, the private sector, the NGOs, the people. We have to come together, because by seeing what divides us, we're simply setting ourselves up for a fall. But if you ask what happens in the communities where we work, where we go down to level, and of course you do it in your new role as well, then what we see there, how pivotal women are in the local economy, how in so many countries in the world where there are terrible things going on, it's the mothers, it's the grandmothers who plant their feet on the ground and hold that community together. There's so much power that women can have, but there's so many barriers that prevent them from doing that. It's very interesting. It goes back to this stereotypes. It's this idea that women can't do the things that men can do. And in my foundation, we have a whole, every year we do a survey of the women we're working with, and, talking to them, stereotypes come up again and again. The other thing is women are affected like everybody else. Last year, what was their biggest problem? It was the world economy going down. The year before that, it was COVID. But women are very keen to participate, to solve that problem. This year, we've been asking them about technology, and particularly AI and generative AI. And thanks to Intuit, we're going to publish some research in March. And that shows what women are asking for is the chance to participate. Yeah. They want to learn. They want to know, how can we use this to improve our businesses, to improve the lives of our community? And when you look at the figures, if you look at generative AI, over 50% of men are now using it in their personal and private lives. For women, it's more like 30%. And if you look at the businesses that are in that, twice as many men are doing businesses in AI than women. But we need that perspective. And the internet, and he said it, can do such amazing things. We have an app, the Her Venture app. We've reached 100,000 women entrepreneurs in 7 or 8 countries where we've introduced the app. And that really helps women, because it's like 5 or 6 minute short, I call it a nano MBA journeys. 25% of the women who've downloaded it have a business idea and have been able to start that business idea, contributing to the economy. But the other interesting thing is 10% of the people who've downloaded it are men. And it goes back to those stereotypes, because men have no problem seeing a free app that they can download on their phone and say, oh, well, that's for me, I can do that. For women, I think so much of the learning and the education and the examples of entrepreneurs are about men. So we very much focus on a women-centered approach. The journey of the entrepreneur, where they learn about the things that they need to learn about, it's a woman. And therefore it's saying to women, this is about you. And men have no problem saying, oh, that's about me too. But for women, it does seem as though if they can't see it, and they're not told that this is something women can do, it's a real, it kind of puts them off.
Breaking stereotypes, so both of you have. You, of course, becoming the first woman Prime Minister of Denmark, and of course you in your trailblazing career, Cherie, as a barrister. What were some of the personal challenges that you had to both overcome?
I mean, first of all, I want to agree so wholeheartedly with Cherie. I think what women are asking is just a path to participate. And that's why it is so terrible that every time we have a crisis, COVID, for example, is that the group that gets set back most is, of course, women. Suddenly, I mean, first of all, there were the care workers. They had to care for the family. research has shown that suddenly they did much more of the unpaid work in the families, 1 hour more, and that was added in COVID. They don't have access to the healthcare. So there's so many things that has impacted women, and there's a crisis happened. It could be a financial crisis, COVID, whatever, and it's just a setback for women. And that is also, we have to create the systems where that doesn't happen. So I'm very, very keen to discuss that, because women just want a leg up. They just want to participate, get their education, get their healthcare, get invited into business. I sit on the Cherie Foundation, where we promote social entrepreneurs. And of course, most of those actually this year are women doing amazing work across the world, helping and actually creating businesses that also has a social impact. Amazing work. So they just want a chance to participate. In terms of our obstacles, I mean, how long do we have? I wrote a book recently, a couple of years ago, and it's so funny because I'd actually forgotten some of all these obstacles. I had forgotten the vile commentary there was about me as a person, the way I looked, my husband, everything about me was commented. And there's no doubt that the whole purpose of all of this was basically to portray me as a less competent person, a less intellectual person, someone who wasn't capable of being prime minister or leader of my party, which I was for more than 10 years. So all the comments about the way I looked and my bags and my shoes and everything was the purpose number one, maybe unspoken, but that was purpose number one, was to make me a less competent person. And the problem is that if you dig and you dig and you dig on these issues, it actually reflects people's mind. And I have no doubt that as soon as people started commenting on me in general, it actually affected people. So they had to be convinced even more that I was a competent and intelligent person who could not only be the leader of my party, but also prime minister. So it took its toll. But when you're in it, and I'm sure you will agree, you kind of walk past it, because if you had to stop every time someone says something vile about you, you couldn't do anything else. You couldn't get some work done, any work done. So I think Cherie and I have the same experience, that it was pretty tough, particularly when you look back at it.
Well, I totally agree with that. I think what makes the difference, if you like, what made the difference is to be able to see role models and also to have mentors and support. So I told you before, I went into the law because another woman from Liverpool, Rose Heilbronn, was the first ever woman KC. And some mad reason, having seen that, I thought if one woman from Liverpool can do it, then I could do it too. But so then also you have mentors. And in my time, I've had many mentors and role models. And I particularly, on this platform, wanted to mention one of them, and that is Glenys Kinnock. Because, of course, Helle and I it happens to be Helle's mother-in-law.
You made me cry now.
Helle and I were at her funeral just recently, but when Neil Kinnock was leader of the Labour Party, she was a breath of fresh air, and she, again, had all the things that we're talking about, criticised for having opinions of her own, heaven forbid, for being a strong woman. She was always so elegant, she was always so articulate, and then subsequently she went on herself to be an MEP and then a minister in the government, and an amazing role model, and she is sadly missed.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, Cherie.
Cherie, talking of a Labour government...
Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
We're for it.
I know you're definitely both for it. That's absolutely true, of course. But how optimistic are you? Are they a shoo-in?
Listen, remember, I was married to Tony Blair in 1997. He was the only
still
person...
married?
Yes, I am. But I was married to him in 1997 when everybody else thought we might win, and he was still convinced that we would, we had to work, have to earn the public's trust. No one's got a right to become the governing party. You have to show that you've both got the capacity, but also the vision to make people's lives better. And I think under Keir and the amazing frontbench team we have people who are absolutely able to do that job. I'm so glad that Rachel Reeves has been here this week. God willing, she could be the first woman finance minister. in the UK. And everyone who's seen her, as some of you must have done, will know how absolutely ready and able she is to do that job.
Of course, there are many elections this year. Over half of the world's population will be going to the polls. Helle, in your role as co-chair of the Oversight Board at Facebook Meta, how are you going to tackle misinformation?
There's no doubt that we're going into the big election year. Social media platforms have to be much more vigilant about how they moderate content. And one of the things we have done, I don't know if all of you know what the Oversight Board is. I sit on Meta's Oversight Board, which is basically an independent governance board where we tell Meta what piece of content they have to remove or what they can leave up on their platforms. And I think what we have done over the last 4 years is basically help Meta grow up. Meta has become a much more responsible social media platform. It's not only on the basis of our work, but it plays a part in Meta's change. And what I'm expecting from all social media platforms in this year of election, and also with the civil unrest and conflict we're seeing across the world, is that they really have a clear approach how to do that. And that means that they must balance which content they leave up. And I think the biggest balance here is that they can't take down everything that's hate speech. That wouldn't provide for the free speech that we need. They need to balance hate speech with speech that can cause real life harm, and they need to take that stuff down. The other thing I'm hoping that they will do is that they will engage and involve the global audience in when government leaders are asking for content to be taken down. I think we should demand that transparency. And of course, when there is really vile mis and disinformation, they have to take it down immediately. We saw in the Bangladesh election, there was a lot of misinformation. We saw it in the Polish election, where it was amazing that Donald Tusk, who I know very well, could win that election, considering what he was up against. So I'm asking social media platforms to be much more responsible. That doesn't necessarily mean to curate more content and take more content down, because we must remember that free speech is a very important thing, but really balance free speech up against real-life harm with the content that are on the platforms.
Just finally, I'd like to ask you both, what's your message to women who might be watching this, who are facing daily discrimination?
Yeah. You can do it.
Yeah.
Do not let them tell you that you're not good enough, because you know, and I know, you are.
Absolutely. Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't do, and support each other. I always want women to support other women, and I think there's a massive, incredible, divine power in women supporting other women. So uplift yourself, but also help other women be uplifted with you. That's my advice. And also, I want to just a little message of hope. Don't forget that even though we live in such a brutal time where we hear such horrid news from all corners of the world, it's also a good time to be alive for women. And women have never had better opportunity for their health and for education and to provide for themselves that they have right now in this year. So let's not lose all hope. There's still a lot of hope, and it still could be a good time to be alive, where we change the future and not let the future rush over us without trying to change it.
Well, the power is in our hands. You say Donald Tusk, he did win.
He did win.
Because the people of Poland saw through the lies.
The good guys can still win elections.
Helle Thorning-Schmidt, Cherie Blair, thank you so much. Thank you for coming.